Call to order the City of Norwood Planning Commission for July 3rd, 2024. Time is 3:34. Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers.
Present.
Mayor Schneider.
Present.
Mrs. Signature. Mr. Hockney.
Present.
Mr. Steiner.
Moving on to item B, approval of the agenda. Do I have any requests to modify the agenda from any of the commissioners?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Town, please call the roll.
Chairman Powers.
Yes.
Mayor Schneider.
Yes.
Mr. Hockney.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Motion carries. The agenda is approved. Moving on to item C, approval of minutes, June 5th, 2024. Says, pardon me. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 5th?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Town, please call the roll.
Chairman Powers.
Yes.
Mayor Schneider.
Yes.
Mr. Hockney.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item D, continued public hearing. Tyson Hermes of Hermes Construction Company submitting a preliminary plan under section 1155.13 for a major planned unit development to build a 108-unit apartment development for the property known as 1631 Sherman Avenue, Norwood, Ohio, 45212, Hamilton County, Book 651, page 0049, parcel 0073-00, located within a neighborhood business zoning district with a planned unit development overlay. Mr. Hermes?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to first start by saying thank you to the Commission for letting us speak again today. I've got a PowerPoint presentation prepared that I'd like to roll through. Not so much the nuts and bolts of the project, but hopefully a pretty quick overview here. So the goals of the development are to provide affordable workforce housing, provide housing for the aging population, meet and exceed the requirements of the City of Norwood, improve the pervious area of the site from the previous fun factory, make the buildings architecturally appealing, create usable outdoor spaces, have a low impact on community service, and utilize sustainable, energy efficient, viable green solutions, while also creating a connection to the Norwood Loop or Wasson Way. So the site is 2.5 acres. We've got 36% of the 36% pervious, where the previous Fun Factory site was only 14% pervious. You can see the upper image there is the Fun Factory with the paving. It extends almost all the way to the property lines, whereas the proposed development, it does not go to the property lines. There are some open areas, open spaces between the buildings, open spaces in the parking lot, and open areas between the buildings and the sidewalk. It's two buildings, 108 units developed, 54 single bedroom and 54 two-bedroom units, with 143 parking spaces. Each building is 4 stories with a half basement. I did review some of this the last time, but what we've added in here more recently is we've bumped up the ADA parking spaces. The required would be 5 parking spaces. We are providing 6. We'd be required to have 3 accessible units with without a roll-in shower. We're going to provide 6 per building, and we'd be required to have 1 roll-in shower, handicap accessible unit. We're going to provide 2 per building. And this is to help accommodate the aging population, and as more people are wanting to age in place. So This site plan is slightly different than the one that was submitted. That one that you had there shows four handicap parking spaces. This shows 6. That was one modification that we've made in the meantime here. We are trying to cater to the young professionals, the young families, overall the workforce housing, but also the aging population, with no stairs required for all the units. Both buildings have elevators that serve all floors. Addressing the idea of affordable housing. Generally, the government says that affordable is housing that doesn't require more than 30% of your income to pay for the rent and the utilities. The average median income of Hamilton County is $73,375. And we would be offering apartments at and below 80% of the people who are at that median income. For the single room apartments, the double room apartments, we'd be accommodating 70% of the people who are in the average median income. We are planning to build the entire development in one phase, and we have done a preliminary traffic study for the site, and they have found that it's a low traffic trip generation for the development. We've talked about this in the past as well. We are planning some attractive outdoor spaces, swinging benches, water features, nice gathering areas, nice landscaping. We are shooting to make the buildings lean green. This would be using sustainable materials where feasible, using energy efficient windows, HVAC, insulation, appliances, using viable green solutions wherever possible, like low flow plumbing fixtures, TPO roofs that are white to help reduce the heat island effect, using energy efficient bulbs, things like that. And also, in the meantime, promoting recycling for the residents. So this will help reduce the impact on the environment, reduce the impact on utility services, and ultimately keeping the tenant utility costs low. The open spaces we've calculated are slightly above what is required. The requirement is 25% of the area. I'll have to look at this one because it's a little bit closer here so I can read the numbers, the small numbers on the bottom. The required space of 2.52 acres would be 27,443 square feet. And if you add up the blue area that we're showing there, which actually we're not even, I see a couple islands we're not including in that. So we're safely within the area at 27,475 square feet of open area. And we would also be proposing to donate 7 feet of the east side of the property to Norwood. This would allow access from Sherman Avenue to the Upper Millcrest Park. And that would help create the Norwood Loop, or help finish the Norwood Loop. I know that the city has talked about trying to purchase that property from Norfolk Southern. I know from personal experience that they're extremely difficult to deal with.
Don't say that. They're easy. They're going to work with us.
Wishful thinking.
Be positive.
Yes. But so if that, for some reason, doesn't work, this would still allow that connection point to come through. So again, a quick summary. Affordable workforce housing, housing for an aging population, improving the pervious area of the site, making an architecturally appealing construction with the apartment buildings, attractive outdoor spaces, using sustainable, energy efficient, viable green solutions. We're proposing something that has a low traffic volume and creating a connection for the Norwood Loop and the Wasson Way. I'm available for questions if you have any.
Questions?
Barney, you want to go
I
first?
think based on what we talked about last time, I'm just curious, did the walkway connection walkway come from staff or the developer?
The developer. I believe that's
Yeah,
correct.
Okay, I lived on Baker for 11 years. I would never, you always walk the tracks every time I mean,
You walk the track, yeah.
so I'm just curious, who's going to upkeep it? Who's going to patrol when the cars for the park, they park in his lot? I'm just, it just seems to me as I read the minutes from last time, why do we want that problem?
Well, I would say that that's not something that we're deciding here today.
Okay.
But they are making that as an
It's an
offer
offer?
to the
Very
city,
good.
but not
No,
something
I-
that we're asked to discuss
I
here.
don't have any other issues.
and we have created a draft memorandum of understanding regarding that 7 feet as well. If you'd like to look at that, or if you'd like me to submit that for record.
Just to address that real quickly, so if, to kind of tag on with Mr. Sewer, if the city decided it did not want that property, that would just remain open space, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that would remain part of the property.
Other
I'm
questions?
not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just saying I was wondering where it came from.
Mr. Mayor?
I would say good job getting with the staff because you're hitting on a lot of hot button issues that I hear about and that council members hear about. I don't know if you went to a council committee meeting and,
Not yet.
or if you've talked to council members, but I think there's a lot of stuff here that are very important to them and very important to all of us in the environment, the environment and the some of the things that you hit on. The connection there, when I look at this, the connection that you're talking about, I look at people taking their bicycle and being able to ride over and connect to the Norwood Loop of the Wasson Way Trail and that connectivity. And we absolutely want to promote that part. I think Bernie brought up a few potential, areas where that would be of concern, but I look at that and say, and I don't think that's just good for the citizens on Baker and, our community members, but I think it's good for the people who live here. You talk about aging in place and putting, there's so many elderly people that have lived in apartments in Norwood their whole life. They really have. They've been there. I mean, there's many homes that have two families where a person has lived there. And this is a place to downsize for others that live in the city of Norwood. And it's, with the stuff you're doing, it's really, I think you hit a home run with this presentation that you did. Last time I wasn't really excited about the project. It was like, okay, another multifamily community. I mean, you've even talked to the fire chief and they've given their endorsement of it. I mean, I think you've done pretty good at bringing this one to the table. So I don't have any major concerns with it as it's presented.
Thank you, Mayor.
You got anything, Tommy? No.
Mr. Skelly, staff comments?
No, you have in your package a updated memo dated June 26th, just to give you full chronology. I think I mentioned this last time. So we met with the applicants probably at least 6+ months ago to talk about general plans, which included some discussion on access potentially for the park, which could include the bike trail. So to me, just to explain, and again, there's always the risk for maintenance, not knowing the future of those negotiations. As both gentlemen kind of mentioned, it could be a royal pain dealing with Norfolk Southern. I think it's wise to have a contingency, so therefore having at least a 7-foot access easement makes sense. That's my perspective. So if there's any complaint or grief, I'm happy to take some of the responsibility because I think I probably push that item as well. It's a good idea for planning and ability. Taking off from our prior submission that we received on memo that you had before you then, there was about 50 conditions of approval. We did receive a compliance package from the applicant addressing all the major concerns, including, as you heard, a abbreviated traffic impact, which confirmed a lot of the non-concerns. There was people in the neighborhood or staff worried about the traffic. Of those, at least 5 of the items were discussed as being probably more deserving to be included in the final plan, both for having the certainty and for cost, redesign, and engineering. I believe that's perfectly fine. I was just trying to push to have those things more up front. So the current memo you see, again, provides for, I believe, a conditional approval as 4. There was kind of fewer items. There was some discussion, I'm happy to have it, with regards to the applicant, and under the actual words, but at least trying to peg you down for the parking ratio. So at least for these sort of developments, could be anything. My preference is, at least, especially because it is a PUD, just to memorialize the elements of it. So baked into the policies for a PUD, there is some flexibility, but for this, I'd like to provide that. So to me, through good engineering and good design, you picked an appropriate ratio for this. I believe on the current plan, it's 1.37 per dwelling unit. I put it down to 1.32, recognizing that the city has a requirement of only 1 per bedroom. I do like to see, because I'm old and again, people drive, there's guests, there's Thanksgiving, there's Christmas, there's other holidays where to have that surplus baked in. So it was not meant the antagonism or just to force you to do something not required, but at least for the condition of approval. If you're providing that, I'd like to hold you that, at least to provide that as part of the design. So, and I think it's good for the marketing of the development as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's about it. Questions for me or for the memo?
Questions for Mr. Skelly?
Mr. Skelly, you had 5 recommendations to approve it, but contingent upon these 5. I think you just talked about these 5 and put them to rest. So, my motion at this point would be to approve it, and recommend it to the City of Norwood Council without conditions. Is that not correct?
That's perfectly fine. I just, saw in the audience, we have Brody here, so if there's anything, and you heard earlier, so there was a lot of discussion with the fire department working out. I don't know if there's any other conditions that you may have as a planning commission or anything else, but.
I don't have any other, I have AC Brody's letter saying no additional concerns of the phase of this project, so that's good. Okay.
Okay, motion on the floor to approve. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer,
Yes.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, close public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Town, please call the roll.
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hermes.
Can we get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation that we can share? Okay, thank you.
Moving to item E, new business. Mick Oaks, representing PLK Communities, is submitting a minor change to the approved final PUD plan for the Factory 52 development. Change would include the addition of a 15 by 10 and 1/4 by 36 keg cooler attached to the east side of the Aces Pickleball Building, and the addition of a tent structure over the outdoor Aces Pickleball courts measuring between 76 to 81 feet in width and 100 to 105 feet in length, with height starting between 16 to 17 feet at the sidewalls and a central peak at a height of 25 to 35 feet.
These guys need to get their stuff out of here, their PowerPoint and all that. They plug.
Sorry. Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Mick Oaks with PLK Communities, and today I'm representing Aces Pickleball on both of these open items. First one would be the Aces Keg Cooler. It's a 575-foot additional cooler space. As we've seen the demand in Aces rise, we've seen storage decrease. And one thing I'd like to point out that the cooler itself will be wrapped in like materials as what Aces Pickleball is. So that metal siding will be inconspicuous to both residents and guests at the site. So moving on to the weather barrier. This weather barrier shown the uncovered 3 courts to the far left currently. As the ACES staff and team are working on a more permanent solution, we believe that this weather barrier tent item will get through the winter months with more outdoor pickleball playing space. So that is that range that I had submitted. At the most, it would be those 3 courts, which would be the highest and longest width of range, but also opportunities to scale that back depending on both the engineering, of the wind load of the structure, and also the permanent foundations that are going to be in place for a tent this size. So we do believe that both of these things, both of these open items will be great additions to the ACES Pickleball as it continues to grow, not only for the residents but also the community. I'd love to answer any open questions on either of these.
Questions for Mr. O?
I got a big concern with this cooler because there's a couple TVs right there and it's perfect for sitting there and watching. And now you're going to extend it? No, but seriously, the big concern was the exterior look of the cooler. And so you're saying that it will be wrapped. It's not going to be just a big stainless steel look.
It'll be wrapped to match the rest of the building.
I would sort of expect that from what you're doing there. Yeah. And then the other questions I had, and I don't know that we've even moved on to really, I guess we could discuss the tent structure and what the makeup of that tent structure is. I know I had some questions when I read it at first, but have those been, maybe they've been clarified to some people.
Mr. Oakes, could you clarify the construction materials on the tent?
The construction materials themselves will just be a Camargo Enterprise, white tent that you see at some outdoor events. What we're looking to do is to make it more of a conditioned space. Although tents are sometimes deemed a non-permanent structure, we want to be transparent with the commission. We do anticipate to have this up for a significant portion of time as the ACES team is working on a more permanent addition potentially to that ACES building itself. So the material itself will just be that white, almost translucent material. But because the size of that tent is great, we're going to have to put in foundations of some sort. And I will add that these tents are relatively expensive. I think it's almost $250,000 with the tent alone, not even talking about anything structural or any engineering that goes into a tent this size. So before we start putting any money into this, we wanted to confirm that we were approved to actually extend it as far as 3 courts west, before we started putting money into it. That's why we put the range in there if we needed to scale it back or wider, I guess, on either side. But the actual constructability, it's a very commonly seen tent. It wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary or an eyesore to the rest of the development or ACES itself.
Other questions for Mr. Oakes?
I know that the building department requires permits for temporary tents that are put up. You're saying this is not a permanent tent. This is a temporary tent. It's over 100 square feet or something for a temporary permit, and it's a short term because that's what we do to the people that do festivals and do different things.
If they're temporary, yes. But this would require a permit because it's more of a semi-temporary or semi-perm, who answered?
Just to jump in really quick, Mayor, it is, we're approaching it in the sense that it is a permanent tent. That being said, if we're spending a very decent amount of money for a tent itself, we're also viewing alternate options, but for the time being, to custom order this tent, it takes months in advance to get out. So in order to do that and have the, come November, October timeframe of when it does start getting colder, to keep the courts open, more and more people, we're viewing it as a permanent solution.
Mm-hmm. Another concern of mine would be wind gust. any type of challenges that, I know you're going to try to protect your investment, but, looking at those things, when you say semi-permanent or semi-temporary, you still need to make sure that when there's storms come through and things, that it's not something that ends up destroyed, but of course, you're going to engineer those things in, and then you're not pulling vehicles under this, there's no fuel source under there, there's no heating elements, there's nothing that could cause a fire or anything.
No, sir.
Do you see that as any time where you would put temporary heaters under there? The propane torch things, and use this as an outdoor event space? That would be a concern.
It's something I'd have to check with the ACES staff. This is, on behalf of them, I'm not sure what their, long-term plans would be to actually activate the space. Everything that I have heard, it is just for outdoor pickleball during the colder months of the season.
Would it be enclosed?
Yes, they would have walls on either side.
Okay.
This is Nick. So you have to heat that, but the heat would be held outside. So you would actually, when he says condition the space, they would have some form of heating. It would not be the hot blast furnaces that you could put anywhere near plastic. But to condition it for the winter, they would need some type of heat. It might be to 55 or 60 degrees, not a lot. But to what he's saying about the permanent structure, we've actually we've requested their team come up with a permanent solution that maybe extends the awning and that does something else. Because ideally, that is much more aesthetically pleasing. So, but what we're trying to do for them right now is say, how can they keep more courts open for the winter? But yeah, they will have to do some form of heating, but it will not be like the torch heaters. It would be something outside, and they would have more of like that, what's called like a curtain, so the fabric things to heat it from the inside.
Mr. Lingham, could you state and spell your name?
Yes, Nick Lingenfelter, NICHOLAS,
And sir, who are you with?
with PLK Communities.
Thanks.
Any further questions? Assistant Chief Cianciolo, do you have any concerns from the fire department?
This is the outdoor space currently.
Would you step up to the mic? Thank you.
So I know the outdoor awning is already sprinkled. Depending on how this is constructed, if it's attached to the current building, it probably becomes an extension of that structure. It would probably have to extend those sprinklers under that awning as well. I mean, that would have to be, the building department would have to look at that, and the commissioner would be the one to decide that. But that would be my only thing on that.
Thank you. There plans to do anything like that, or has that been considered?
Considered in the sense of if we need to, partition it off from one end to the other, I think that's something we're open to. The drawings that we have right now are still schematic design. I think that's something when we do submit a building permit for, we can review it then and ensure that if it is attached to the building, that we'll extend the sprinkler system to it. But
But it could potentially, because it's semi-permanent, potentially not be attached to the building.
correct.
Okay. That's it. Comments?
Other questions or comments by the commissioners? But entertain any motions, or if there are none, I'll put forward a motion.
Have at it.
I would make a motion to approve the cooler on two conditions, that it be wrapped in a matching or complementing materials to the structure and be otherwise in compliance with the building code as approved by Commissioner Bly, and that the tent be approved provided that it otherwise meet with the building codes as approved by Commissioner Bly.
Seconded.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yeah.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
So this does not go to council, this is.
That's correct. That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Oakes. Moving on to item F, old business, discussion on vape shops. Give a brief update for the commissioners. There was an extension of the moratorium on vape shops at the last council meeting. Several council members did express their desire for us to make sure we don't come back and do that again. So do need to keep this moving along. Otherwise, I'll turn that over to Mr. Skelly, if there are any updates that were sent by commissioners.
I have not received anything yet. Thanks for bringing up the update regarding the moratorium extension. I will mention, and probably Karen will do a much better job, but I believe there's potentially existing operator who might want to relocate. So you probably will be getting a request fairly soon. Although, I'm just trying to, there might be two different things. I don't know. So anyways, let me reframe that. So I believe there's potentially a brand new operator that I was thinking of locating in here. And we did speak to that person, indicate timing. As of today, I think maybe it was a different call for someone who's an existing operator looking at relocating within the city. And we're talking like maybe a few 100 yards or something. But that's something that you'll probably get on Monday. So I received that call this afternoon. So I think the two are different. So because that's a follow-up with regards to not necessarily the pressing nature of it, but just what's happening in the local market.
Questions or comments for Mr. Skelly? Items that we'd like to see changed in the vape shop ordinance?
My thoughts were we were doing some research on CBD and what can be sold at vape shops and is there some research being done on that?
At least from
Synthetics and E9 or something, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. From my end, at least, I don't have any research. Thanks for clarifying that. I can do that independently. Also work with the law department. Just off the top of my head, those are products right now are being sold quite a bit. So I think part of the reason for us, being more cautious with either approving it as is or moving on was the belief that how would the vape zoning ordinance amendment mesh with the pending recreational adult use marijuana. So that was at least my understanding in terms of more what the planning commission was more interested in terms of down to the granular levels of what really is being sold. Because when you go into those typical stores, they're selling quite a few different things. And all, I assume, perfectly legal or not regulated yet. So again, the intent of the vape was to regulate like-kinded uses, which was tobacco related or sold tobacco products.
And smoked products?
Smoke, vape, chewed, whatever, but it was something you had a general retail or department store, those type of convenience retail, they would already almost be permitted. But if it was strictly tobacco, could be a cigar shop, then that would be hatched within the new vape tobacco ordinance.
I have, last time you guys met, I had 2 phone calls. I've had at least 2 additional phone calls regarding hookah and smoke shops, smoke lounges kind of thing. And then, like Mr. Sawyer was talking about, I did meet with somebody yesterday who I thought wanted to relocate a store, but when we mentioned the moratorium, he said he had like 3 elements that were part of vape. So we handed him a copy of the moratorium and asked him to take a look at it from there.
Okay.
Other items for discussion on the vape shop ordinance? I'll say, I think for for my part, the kind of three pieces that I'm looking at on this are avoiding other sensitive uses, so primarily schools, avoiding overconcentration in any one particular area of the city. And then how do we classify them as Class A, B, or C in our zoning code? If there's no further thoughts, we can move on to item G. Mr.
Just a
Stewart?
question. This is just a general question of, Noah, you, maybe Vic. How would this be enforced? When I see 51% and 80%, who's gonna enforce that and check that?
The building department would enforce that.
Okay. I'm always thinking about that as we're writing these things of, enforcement wise, who's taking on more responsibilities. And, okay.
Other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to item G, excuse absent members. Do I have a motion to excuse our absent member?
I make a motion, we excuse our absent member.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Town, please call the roll.
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Moving to item H, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Town, please call the roll.
Chairman Stewart. Or shoot. Chairman Power,
Wrong commission. Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 4:10. Thank you, everyone.